All right, we're back again. 6 days later, we're back at another crit. This one being a local crit, and you know, where it's hot, where it's humid, Miami, Florida, where everybody's fast, so it's never really a practice crit. But we're gonna kind of break down what happened in this race, kind of my nutrition, my sleep the night before, and just overall how I felt going into this. Take a quick look at the breakdown. So going into this race, I had 115 degrees max temperature. Spending most of my time in the field and then getting into a breakaway around 40 minutes into the crit. So kind of jump into that. Let's talk about like my sleep the night before. Non-existent. I have a 2-year-old son, and he's sick from traveling over to Salt Lake with us and being on the plane. So unfortunately, the sleep was non-existent the night before. I was up at like 2:30 in the morning with him, trying to get snot out of his nose so he could sleep. Finally went back to bed, and then I overslept through my alarm and had a crappy breakfast, had a coffee, and I think some like Reese Puffs. So not the best nutrition either going into a race. And then I was coming off a rest week, so after I left Salt Lake, I dialed it back, and I think I only had like 4 to 5 hours on the bike, most of it being like one group ride that was super high intensity, and then the rest just kind of riding around on my bike. Did some openers, but overall just not a whole lot of stress in the legs. And I kind of go back and forth, and you guys can let me know, do you race better with fatigue or without fatigue? Because, you know, I've done it both ways. I've done a taper, and I've also done it where I've done a full gas ride before a race, and I felt great. So let me know what works best for you guys, because I'd be interested to hear. So for me, I like stress in my legs. I always like to ride hard. I've always been a person that does more than I should. Coach gives me my workouts, so then I'll do those workouts, and then I'll double up and do a group ride after, and then I'll ride home, and then I'll think about doing a Zwift race, and then, you know, so I'm always piling on more than I should. So I'm always racing with fatigue in my legs, and I prefer that. So it's just how I am. But anyways, this race, really not that windy. As you can see in the lower left-hand corner, we have like a cross headwind going into the finish, but it really wasn't that windy. I think it rained on us for like 15 seconds and dried up before it even got the ground wet. But that was kind of refreshing, and I was really hoping, because that was like the thick of the breakaway when we had like 10 laps to go and it started to sprinkle on us, and I was really hoping it would downpour, because that would have been refreshing. And I have disc brakes, so disc brakes I can brake. But anyways, so yeah, kind of sat in a lot of the race, just kind of surfed wheels, covered moves, really tried to get a teammate up in the breakaway. When I was on the front, as you can see, I'm not really putting out much watts. I'm upper zone 2 tempo area, trying to just let people take off and fly up the road a little bit, let other people chase, which, you know, that's not really how I race a bike. I'm usually really aggressive on a bike, and I'm always trying to force the breakaway. But with this one, in me racing USA Crits, I really wanted to focus in on being within the peloton and trusting that breaks will come back, because, you know, I once heard you got to be prepared to lose to win. And so I really wanted to just kind of sit in. But here, you know, I'm sitting like fourth wheel, third wheel, and there's a small little like attack up the road, and we're going 29 miles an hour, and I'm pushing 200-300 watts. So I'm in a good spot right now. And going into the finish line area here, I'm just surfing those wheels and saving as much energy as possible. We did have 5 people on our team, and you know, we all had our own agenda. We really didn't have a plan going into this race, because a lot of the super heavy hitters were not there. So the team tactics, I don't think were going to be as involved as they would need to be if we had some of the other full squads there. So smaller field, less, you know, everybody's kind of just racing on their own. So, but here I am at the front, putting in a nice little dig. There's a little small, I think there's like 2 guys up the road at this point. I'm not worried about it. There's a couple guys that I have marked in this race that if they went up the road, then I would definitely want to be with them. But our main goal was to get Taylor into a break, and then we had Sebastian and Luis David, which are both really good sprinters. So, Sebastian was already saying he was going to sit in and focus on a field sprint, and then Luis was going to be pretty aggressive and try to get into a breakaway and then hopefully sprint from the breakaway. And as you'll see later on in this race, we'll talk about it. We were successful to get the people that we needed into a breakaway. Unfortunately, just bad luck happens in racing, and sometimes you don't get the dub, and you gotta just accept it. And it's nothing that we did wrong. It's you'll see later on in the race. It's just bad luck. So. Over here on my left, we have Alexis. Short glimpse of him. Awesome. He's making a recovery right now. He had a really bad slam over in North Florida in the beginning of the year. He was taken out by helicopter, broken ribs, clavicle, concussion, collapsed lung. So that was, a big loss. And we're happy he's here and he's making a recovery. And always wear your helmet. And I've talked about this on my Instagram stories a couple times and shared the photo of his helmets, and I definitely can share if you guys want to see. And I know he's always willing to, he's a big advocate on, sharing this photo and showing people how important the helmet is, because he wouldn't be here today without that cask helmet. So it's awesome having him back in here. I knew, I talked to him before the race, and he said his fitness wasn't really there, which to be expected. He's not riding that much, and he's just focusing on his recovery. So here he is, going 30 miles an hour with us. And right now, there's a slow in the pace, so I'm going to go ahead and take my chances. I'm going to take this line. I'm going to go right past Luis David and try to get a breakaway going. And, I'm pretty marked in this field, so a lot of people, if I go, they're going to jump with me. So I can always expect one or two guys to go with me. I just want to make sure they're the right one or two guys, because, in a breakaway, we end up doing a whole lot of work, and there's just a whole lot of sprinters in Miami that will out-sprint me 10 out of 10 times. It's not even a chance for me to win a sprint against them, and I just don't have it. I can pull all day long, I can ride you off my wheel, but I cannot out-sprint you. So just, keep that in mind. But, right now, I got, I believe his name's Matuta. And he is a huge breakaway rider. Definitely someone that I would want in a breakaway with me, because he's going to share the poles. He has the same objective as me, and then me and him, we come down to a sprint together and duke it out. But there's always someone lurking on my wheel, and I wish I had a rear camera, because I know there's every sprinter in Miami will jump when I jump, because they know that when the brake goes up the road with the certain people, that it's going to stay away. And that's why I kind of was trying to just surf wheels and let a brake establish and then go to that brake. And this is where we're kind of coming into that cross headwind section. You can obviously see the pace slow down a little bit, and then the watts go up. And at this point, I'm pretty sure we have about a 5-second gap on the field. Maybe a little bit more, enough to be committed and see what. I think we had this for about 3 laps, but they're going to reel us back in as much as they can, because it's just not enough people in this breakaway, and just the right people aren't in it. So I kind of realized that and sit up, and we shortly get caught after that. Up here we have Taylor. Unfortunately, we had a lot of bad luck yesterday in the races. He got a front flat. He was in an awesome break, and they were gone, and I had no wants to even go to that breakaway. It was done and dusted. We had him in it, and I think there was like 3 or 4 other guys, so we were going to just play our odds and let Taylor do what he does. But unfortunately, as I'm passing by the start-finish line, I keep getting yelled at that he's got a front flat. So, our option was to go to that breakaway. And we'll see that bridge a little bit later, go into that and what kind of effort it took and the kind of games that we played to make it happen. But here we are again, going to launch off the front, put a nice little dig in, try to create some separation. So the main goal with breakaways is that, the counterattack. You really got to be able to launch and not look super aggressive while launching, because as soon as you're out of your saddle and you're throwing your bike around, that rings alarm bells and everybody's going to get up and chase you. So try to be mellow about it, and it's not like I'm sharing any secrets. Anybody that races with us or at this level knows what the tactics are. And right here, try to get a little draft off this little buggy, but it doesn't work. You might notice that every time I try to breakaway, I'm usually at the front for quite a while, because if I'm gonna waste the energy to try to force a break, I really need to work the break. And even if there's two people behind me, the thing is that if you have the field chasing you and there's two people behind you and you're trying to get a breakaway to form, and you flick your elbow and they don't come around and you hesitate, that's like 2-3 seconds right there that the field is coming at full speed and you're hesitating. So you really want to know who you're with. Right now, me and him are kind of exchanging words, saying, I want him to pull, and he's saying he needs to recover. And we kind of made that agreement, and, I asked him, is he willing to work? Because I'll keep pulling. If you just need a break and you say you're committed, I'll pull you. But if you're gonna sit on my wheel, and that guy's a really good sprinter, so I'm not gonna want to pull him around. It was just me and him anyways. So not 10 times out of 10 I'm gonna get beat at the sprint. So if we got this breakaway to happen, it's probably gonna lose that sprint. So he tells me he's going to pull. He just needs to take a break. So I do about a half a lap pull, and then he comes around and stays true to his word and puts in a pull for me, gives me a little break. Not a super long pull, but he gives something. So shortly he flicks his elbow after. And I think we have like 1 or 2 guys chasing us at this point, and it's always awesome to have 1 or 2 guys join the breakaway. The big thing is that when you're in a breakaway and you're killing yourself and you're going full gas, and people attach to you and they chase you down, have some consideration, because it's always good to have people with you in a breakaway. You don't want to have a breakaway too big, but my magic number is like 4 to 5. If 4 or 5 guys are working really well together in a breakaway, what happens is it creates that little bubble of like that little pocket almost, that even when you're pulling, you have draft behind you, and it's a little bit easier compared to when you have 1 or 2 guys in a break. You move faster, you take shorter pulls, more consistent, you just moving as a unit at a faster speed. So, but the thing is I was going to talk about is that when they catch you, don't kill them. Don't start screaming at them to pull to the front, because I understand that when you're in a breakaway, you're dying and you're trying to get it formed, and you're doing a huge 5-minute power. People are bridging to you. Let them rest. Hold it consistent. They just bridged the gap. Let them rest, and then they'll come around. Now, if it's another 10 minutes and they're not coming around and they're a pure sprinter and they made it by the hand of God to the breakaway, that's when you need to start thinking, okay, this guy's going to sit on the whole time. What am I going to do to get him off? You need to go to the back. You need to gap him off. Whoever the stronger rider is needs to learn how to gap him off, because you don't want someone that's just going to sit on the breakaway and then sprint. And then what happens is that when they sit on the breakaway, then it might encourage others to stop working, because they're going to go, well, he's not working, so why am I going to start working? And then you have a bunch of people in a breakaway not working together while the field is trying to bring you back. So you're basically wasting energy trying to get a breakaway to happen if everybody stops working. And then when you get caught, that counterattack is going to be gone, and your race is done. So it's always something to think about. Don't be so harsh on those people that bridge those big gaps. If they're, know who you're racing with and pay attention. Right here, this is when I was told that there was a flat, so I needed to go to that breakaway. And we had Louis David here, which is our sprinter that we already had plans for him to sprint from a breakaway. So I'm going to start pulling, keep the pace up high, try to string it out. I already made a good jump. We had separation from the field at this point. And then there was a small break up the road with our teammate that had a flat in it. And it took us about, I would imagine, 3 laps to catch this. But as you see, you'll see a little bit into this chase or this bridge, what we did and what I tried to do, because the perfect scenario would have been to get Louis David into that breakaway, because I already had 2 other sprinters on my wheel right now, along with him, that wanted to get into that breakaway too. You always want to make sure who you're pulling to a break. If you got your teammate, you really want to weigh the odds out and go, okay, we're going to bridge up with 2 guys, but we're bringing these 2 guys, and you really want to think over the overall how the end is going to play out. And I felt pretty good about it, having Louis David in there, and then we had Taylor up the road, and I wasn't sure if he was going to be able to get a spare tire or how that was going to work out. I know there's no free laps on this course with it being so long, but he might have been able to stop, get the tire changed out, and get back and be able to help us a little bit. But right here, kind of swing off, I tell Louis David to go, and shortly after, the 2 sprinters jumped on his wheel. So I was like, no way, Jose, I'm going to go right up there, and I'm going to make sure that I am with that breakaway, because I do not want those 3 guys to go up the road by themselves to the break. And so I'm going to be part of it. And shortly after, you'll see them kind of sit up, and Louis David, everybody's kind of looking around. Gioni goes up and he pulls off to the side. And right now I'm like, okay, Louis David, you got to go. And I let the gap open on him. I scream at him to go. And I stop him. He jumps. And this is what I wanted right here, for him to bridge that gap without Gioni and the other guy to go with. But they know exactly that I wasn't going to work, and so I was just going to take the free ride if they were going to bridge to that breakaway. And sure enough, kudos to them, they put in a huge effort to get there, and I just surfed the wheels. So something, for you guys to think about. Always know who your competition is, and sometimes, you got to sit up and try to let something happen. Gioni's putting in a big dig, so I'm like 370 watts behind him right now. So he's getting to that. This guy's he's a fighter, he's a sprinter, and I'm definitely gonna ride that wheel and be part of this breakaway now. So we attached. Everybody's gonna, and this is a pretty large breakaway. I think we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like 8 guys, something like that. But we all worked really well together. But the problem with this breakaway is we had all like the strongest sprinters in this breakaway. So I already knew going into this that I would need to save some energy and focus on the lead-out train for Louis David. Not to talk about the bad news that happened at the end of this race that you'll see. We are about 40 minutes into this race right now. Unfortunately, I did not bring any gels with me. So, and coming off a rest week, my legs were not firing like they normally would. And honestly, like if anybody would have attacked me, I didn't have a jump at all. So I don't know what would have happened if I had like 2 or 3 counterattacks and if we weren't working well together, because they're soggy, and I don't know if it's just bad recovery or just sore legs. I have no idea. So I'm going to focus on getting them ready going into this week. We got some workouts coming up, and then I fly out to Littleton, Colorado Friday afternoon and race in Littleton for the USA Crits number 4 or 5, race 4 or 5. And then I fly back on Sunday, and then I think it's a little bit of a dead area where, we don't have another race until, I think, like mid-August. I'm not sure, though. I think the next race is going to be Spartanburg and Athens, if I remember correctly. And I'm super pumped for because Athens is awesome. It's such a fun race. The energy at Athens, if you ever have the opportunity to go race there, and they have an awesome amateur race where you can qualify in the morning and then you do amateur finals right before the pro men race, and what an experience. It's so cool. So if you're 2, 3, or 4, or 5, definitely look into that. I don't know if 5s can race it, but I know 2, 3, and 4s can, and they all race together in that amateur finals. So it was definitely cool experience. I crashed out and fractured my scapula, but it was definitely a cool experience. And right now, so my GoPro died. Luckily, Leonardo Torcat from Focus Cycling, he has a front and rear camera, and I know he always films, so I hit him up today and asked if he could send me that footage. So we are lucky enough to have the last, I think, 2 laps or 1 lap, courtesy of Torcat. So that's cool. And we'll have front and back views. Right now, we're still working really well together. I'm 2 wheels in front of him right now. I'm in a really good position, but once again, I know who I'm sprinting against, and I know Louis David's back there. So, and the pace is we're going 30-ish right now. The pace is high, it's strung out, and I know a lot of these guys probably aren't going to play those games, because when you start playing those games is when you start having those attacks, and I think everybody's main goal is to keep it strung out and stop those flyers from happening. And unfortunately, the flyers still did happen because we started playing games for a quick second. A lot of bobbing and weaving going around, but still we're keeping the pace high. And Torcat positions himself about, 5th wheel, something like that. We have Louis David in the rear camera. As you see, he's positioned really good. There's about 3, 4 guys behind him, so he's able to move up when he wants to. And I've kind of made my way up to the front right now. I think I'm 3rd wheel, and I really was going to try to sprint and be selfish, but then I thought, he has the better opportunity to win in the sprint, so I'm going to lead him out. And that's when I made that decision to go up to the front and just pull and keep it fast. Right now we start kind of looking at each other. There's some people off the side trying to figure out what they want to do, and I'm looking back. And this is going into 1 lap to go. So I'm on the front with 1 lap to go. Louis David still positioned really good. We're feeling really awesome about this. I look back. There's an attack that goes. I'm going to go with it, and I'm not going to bring him back. I'm just going to go with him and follow it and keep it strung out, because I don't want to catch him right away, because it's kind of like, if I catch him, then there's going to be another counterattack right after that. So I'm just going to let him kind of dangle out there. And as soon as I catch him, I think I'm still thinking at this point that I want to sprint. So I think I swing off and I get really good positioning for a sprint. Yeah, so I just swung off. 1 guy came with me, and then there's 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, so I jump in, and this is when I realize that Louis David is still in it, and I go, okay, I need to be a team player. We need to make this happen. And there's still a guy up the road that we're chasing. Louis David pulls off, and at this point I didn't know why he pulled off. So then I'm right there in the rear camera. I'm coming up here on your left right now, right behind Gioni. And I was like, okay, we got to go. Louis David reattached. I'm going to start leading out. And this is going into 1 turn to go. So I have Jose, I have Leonardo Torcat, and I have Gioni that jumped on my wheel. All sprinters. And I'm thinking that Louis David is on my wheel, in this train. So I just take the turn. We have one guy up the road. I'm not worried about it. I know we're going to catch him. And I just start keeping the pace super high. We got a cross headwind section here. I think I'm 34, 35 miles an hour. And then the sprint starts. And here's me just going, where's my sprinter? But unfortunately, we had a bad race. We had a safety pin that went into the tire and ruined his race. Congrats to Torcat that had a bike throw finish. And on to the next one, which will be Littleton, Colorado. Let me know in the comments if you like these videos and want me to continue making them. Give me a thumbs up and make sure you subscribe. Thank you.